How's the baby, Jeff?
He's good. She's keeping us up at night.
You're paying your dues, Jeff.
Yeah, that is for sure.
You're supposed to be doing.
That's going to be Mindy here in a few days.
Yep.
I'm counting down.
I wouldn't be counting down. You know where they are right now.
Is it
Yeah.
You know where he is.
Mindy?
February 10th.
February 10th. That's what I had on my calendar.
But I did tell him to stay in a little longer because we're really busy.
Yeah. And
I
he'll come
hope he
early,
makes it
know
to the
that.
end of the week. You look like you look very cute pregnant, but man, you are
I know.
making his presence known.
Yeah,
I'm guessing early.
I think so too.
When I saw you at last meeting, you looked like you were ready right then.
I was.
So how are all the ladies at your house, Mr. Phillips?
They're doing okay. Erin had a little bit of a headache this afternoon. That was the first sign of a different symptom that, before she was doing pretty well. And she got a little headache this afternoon, but other than that, everybody else is good. Everybody else is good.
Hi, Peggy.
Hello.
Good evening to you. Karen, good evening. Paul, Chris.
Hello, all.
Hello, everybody.
Jake, if you're not able to get that streaming live,
We're streaming, Jay. I apologize. I'm finishing up correcting the calendar links just so everything on the website is up to date, but we are streaming and we're ready to go.
Okay.
So
Hi, Steve.
I'm just verifying that everything is up to date and correct as it's supposed to be.
Okay. Sounds great.
Get a flag someplace.
Peggy has one right behind her, I think.
Good work, Peggy.
Peggy, go outside, stand in front of your flagpole.
You got it. I can do that.
Okay, I'm going to mute Jay, but we are set and ready on the website and streaming. Everything should be good to go.
Thank you, Jake.
Mhm.
Okay, Peggy, we're ready when you are.
Yep. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If I could have the roll call, please.
Peggy Balsey,
Here.
Paul Godwin,
Here.
Chris Huster,
Here.
Karen Kellums,
Here.
Dan Downey.
Here.
This meeting is a meeting of the Deer Park Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Due to the COVID-19 national pandemic, community input is being suspended this evening. However, public comments will be accepted via this link.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So move.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving tonight's meeting agenda, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. District recognitions and donations.
Yes, thank you. We have one of each this evening, and I'm going to start out with donations. Per usual, when we get to the superintendent recommendations, I'm going to ask that you approve a donation that totals in the amount of $591, and this was received by the Board of Education, and that came from our staff and community that will go towards supplies for Sandy's Closet, helping those community members in need. And, you know, as you recall, in December, we did a recognition of Sandy Mills, and it was really based upon that and Sandy's leaving, that folks wanted to give back in some way to just support Sandy and what she's done for us and support the clothing closet. So that is where that came from. So $591. I thought that was pretty good.
That's fantastic.
Very
Okay.
nice. Very nice.
And the next piece is a recognition, and it's a recognition of you all as school board members. When we talk about this periodically, but being a school board member is not an easy job. It can be very difficult at times, but it's something that you all do to give back to our community yourselves. You know, we talk about giving back with Sandy's Closet, but you guys give back in extraordinary ways, I think, as well. And so it is School Board Recognition Month. And just to start it off, Jeff and I are going to read the following proclamation in regards to School Board Recognition Month. So Jeff, I'll go ahead and start us off.
All right.
Whereas it shall be the mission of the Deer Park Community City School District to provide all students with the best possible education, and
Whereas the school board set the direction for our community's public schools by envisioning the community's education future, and
whereas the school board sets policies and procedures to govern all aspects of school district operation, and
whereas the school board keeps attention focused on progress toward the school district's goals and maintains a two-way communications loop with all segments of the community, and
whereas serving on a school board requires an unselfish devotion of time and service to carry on the mission and business of the school district, and
whereas the school board must respond on behalf of the community to the educational needs of students, and
whereas the school board voluntarily accepts the above mentioned responsibilities.
now therefore be it resolved that Jay Phillips, Superintendent, and Jeff Lewis, Treasurer, do hereby proclaim January 2021 as School Board Recognition Month in Deer Park Community City School District. We encourage all citizens to publicly and privately thank the school board members from all districts serving their communities and for their dedicated service to our children.
And I would definitely, on behalf, I think, of our entire district and our staff, thank all of you. I think, you know, our Board of Education, you guys put in a tremendous amount of time, but, you know, every day you guys are working to better our school district, better our students, better our staff. And I appreciate that. And, you know, I feel like we've come a long way. And so I just, on behalf of myself and everyone else, thank you to all of you for what you do for us.
Agreed.
You're
Jay,
welcome.
yeah, thank you for your kind words.
And I would say I'm speaking for the whole board that we are very honored to be in this position, and we appreciate all the hard work that all of you do, and we appreciate the support of the community supporting us in this role. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Peggy.
I think we have a good team,
Yes, we do.
Amen.
Absolutely.
and we're lucky because it's not that way everywhere. I've spoken to you guys before too.
All right, we are moving on. If I could have a motion for the approval of our December 15th meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the December 15th meeting minutes, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. On to our treasurer financial report.
Right. We had only had one increase in expenditures this past month for December of 2020. It was function level 2300. This was due to some attorney legal fees. And if you will see object 600, it's actually down to 0% in the expenditure category. This is caused with the expenditures being reduced from the CRF school reimbursement program. It's a grant we received this month. It actually is used to decrease the expenditures to offset some of the costs we've had for COVID coronavirus relief fund. And overall, we're looking pretty good. We're at the halfway point of the school year. And within our budget, we are only at 42.9% spent. So under 50% at halfway through the school year. I feel like we're in a good standing there. And I believe that is the conclusion of my financial report.
All right, do I have a motion to approve it?
So move.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the December 2020 monthly financial report, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now for your recommendations.
All right, I have a recommendation. It is a recommendation to authorize to invest. There's 4 parts to it. On 12/21/2020, we have a purchase into Star, Ohio for $117. We actually had 2 purchases on that date of $117. And this is a direct deposit payment from Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services. It's for student transportation reimbursement costs. They agreed to reimburse us for half the costs of a foster place student. And also on that same date, we had a Star, Ohio purchase of $61,050. This is the direct deposit payment from ODJFS, Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services, for the CRF School Reimbursement Program grant, the one I had mentioned earlier, that we had, Jay and I had applied for and received in full. And lastly, there was on 12/23/2020, a redemption of $500,000. And this was for AP, payroll, and outstanding checks.
All right, can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the authorization to invest with Star, Ohio, as Jeff just mentioned and explained, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to superintendent reports, and I believe we have some guests here that are going to be speaking with us about some new courses.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Bossy. And I just want to bring attention just before we start to the structure of our agenda tonight. We have changed the structure a little bit. I just want to make sure folks are aware of that. It's a little different than what they're used to. Typically, curriculum report, communications report, Great Oaks report was under committee reports in the past. We felt like it made more sense to be under our superintendent reports. And then when we get to our committees, we actually have a finance committee, building and grounds committee, and then some OSBA reports if necessary that are under our committee meetings, because those are our actual committees. So I just wanted to put that out there before we jump in. But this evening, as you all know, Dr. Orso would typically give our curriculum report. She's out for 2 more days. She'll actually be back on Thursday. So we're excited to have her back. But in the meantime, tonight, we're going to talk about some course proposals from the high school. And I'm going to actually let Mr. Hartley take it from here and introduce our guests and talk about what those proposals are.
Yeah, thank you, guys. So we have 3 new course proposals this year. One is a little bit of a a restart from a class that we offered a few years ago. That's a study skills class. So I'll talk about that just briefly. The other 2 classes that were proposed, one is a Shakespeare and popular culture class, and that would be an English ELA class. So we have Ms. Godwin, who is our junior level ELA teacher, and Mr. Hubbard here, who is our senior level ELA teacher, to talk a little bit about that. And then the third class is the American Cultural Experience class, and we have Mr. Devine from the Social Studies Department to talk a little bit about that. So I will be brief with just kind of a reintroduction to what we're calling our study skills class. Again, it's kind of a kickstart or a refresh of a class that we've offered in the past, but the idea is that our intervention specialists often don't get enough time and enough structure to really drill down with our students in the that are on their caseloads. They get to the goals, they get to the specific or specially designed instruction, but this class study skills allows our intervention specialists to really have some more concentrated time instead of feeling like things are in and out. This allows them to get to a little bit more focus with their SDI or their goals, and specifically with their transition goals. The reason that this class went away is because, my understanding in talking with some of our intervention specialists is that kind of became a dumping ground, for lack of a better term, a place where students who, were having behavioral issues were just sent, whether they were on a caseload or not. So what we want to do is we want to provide the opportunities we should for our students, but put some structure to it and really do it the way it should be done. So that is again, that's the study skills class. That was proposed by our special education unit, but we work together with them on that. So, yes, ma'am.
Is that junior high and high school?
Yes.
Okay. And like what time, is this like a planned period or how's that work scheduling wise?
Yeah, it would be a bell during the day for each intervention specialist.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay.
How many kids would be in there?
It
How many students you met?
It would depend on the size of the caseloads. I don't think we have a set number yet, but roughly around 10, so it could be anywhere 8 to 12, but probably around 10.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then the next one on my list is Shakespeare and popular culture. So I will throw this to Ms. Godwin and Mr. Hubbard.
Mrs. Godwin, do you want me to start and then you can fill in the gaps? Okay, I don't know that I have anything as important as targeted intervention like Mr. Hartley had, but I will say that Shakespeare is accredited with over 1,700 words and phrases in our popular culture. His impact is so far-reaching that both John Adams and Thomas Jefferson went to visit his grave in Stratford, and Nelson Mandela kept a copy of Shakespeare next to him during incarceration. He used that copy to teach his fellow prisoners about compassion, kindness, mercy, love. We know Shakespeare is culturally ubiquitous, and yet we rarely know it when we encounter Shakespeare in the popular culture. And that's really the goal of the course, is to demystify Shakespeare and reveal to our students all the ways that they interact with Shakespeare on a daily basis, whether they recognize it or not. Every time they see a television show where an old man makes a foolish decision based on his pride instead of love for his family, we're talking about King Lear. Every time someone seeks revenge at the cost of their own lives, we're talking about Hamlet. Every time we watch a television show where a young woman is willing to transcend boundaries in order to save someone she loves, well, we're talking about just about every female in Shakespeare's canon there, except for the villainesses. But the goal here is to, meet our students where they're at, grades 9 through 12, and offer a course where they can interact with Shakespeare in multiple capacities. Both the plays, the manifestations in film and television. Heck, I think there's even a Taylor Swift song, but I haven't listened to it, so I'll let somebody else figure that one out. And the goal here is just to show them that they can learn Shakespeare, that they've been learning Shakespeare their whole life, whether they recognize it or not. Mrs. Godwin, do you want to follow up there with anything?
Yeah, I think another important element of it for a lot of our students, Shakespeare is very intimidating, just because of the language and the idea that, it's all these big things that they're told about. All they're like, Shakespeare's up on this pedestal, and Shakespeare himself would say he's for the masses. Like when he was creating plays, it was for everyone, not just this, high-end art form, right? It was for the masses. It was his day's version of America's Got Talent and reality television, right? So I want our students to understand that Shakespeare isn't this thing that's unattainable and they can't understand it. Shakespeare is for everyone, and Shakespeare can be understood by everyone, and it's not, and there's no one right way to do Shakespeare, right? So I think it's important for our students to maybe drop some of those walls that they have when it comes to reading Shakespeare, because I think a lot of them get intimidated by it. And I hope that a course like this will help them find Shakespeare to be more accessible and more enjoyable than they do right now.
And I think one last piece there, just in terms of making this accessible, this is the kind of course where a 9th grader who wants to learn more about Shakespeare but is scared can enroll and interact with the content, but also an advanced placement student in 12th grade looking for a greater knowledge of the works to help them prepare for that question 3 on the AP Lit test can sit in this class, learn the plays, and develop a broader knowledge base as well. So we're really trying to hit our entire student audience with this course.
And additional to that, you know, it's also for those kids who are interested in maybe going into performing arts or film in some way, so they can look at the way that you can take a text, a play, and we see it in film version, right? And sort of talk about the choices that a director has made, or that an actor has made when creating this character, and why they do that, and how that changes our understanding of a text, and how it changes our understanding of characters, and maybe even get into, if we want to, not to be pedantic or anything, but if we want to talk about like very specific lines where in certain versions you say one word and in other versions they have this word, and talk about how those choices really affect our understanding as an audience, and really hopefully engage in some great conversations about authorial choice and the choices that we make when we're writing, and that we make when we're doing things in our daily lives.
So when is this an extra bell, or will it be replacing another class, or how would this work?
Well, Sarah, do you want me to address that, or do you want to take
that?
Well,
from what I understand, scheduling wise, so I have a little wiggle room in my schedule as far as electives go, and I know sometimes Mr. Hubbard does as well, depending on what's going on with community service and that sort of stuff, and enrollment in blended versus college prep, senior English. So Mr. Hubbard and I both have a little bit of wiggle room in our schedule. So and also, and this might be a good segue into Mr. Devine's course, I have been teaching a course called Cultural Literacy, which we are going to sort of put on the back burner since Mr. Devine is looking into, is creating a class that deals with some of the similar content. And, you know, Mr. Hubbard, Mr. Devine and I have had conversations about crossover for that course. And complete honesty, Mr. Devine's course sounds much more interesting than the course I was teaching. So we've sort of made a little room in my schedule as well, with the removal of one course and maybe having this replace it.
And the reality is the history department has been trying to steal cultural literacy ever since the English department invented it. So we're just going to finally go ahead and let them have it, because it's just been embarrassing to watch for these past.
That sounds like a Shakespearean quote to me.
It sounds like a Shaw class.
Yes, it does.
It sounds interesting.
Anybody else have questions? We might want to zoom in on those classes. I think I could learn a thing or two.
All are welcome. Anytime.
Okay.
Come on over.
Great.
So I will then, I'll just help make that transition. Speaking of cultural literacy and American cultural experience, I will pass it off to Mr. Devine to talk about the course he is proposing as well.
I would first like to thank Mr. Hartley for making me speak after the poetic and English department. So American cultural history, you know, Ms. Godwin and I have talked about just, you know, how these classes relate to what she used to teach, but really what it looks at is American history primarily, but through the culture of the era. So it focuses more on a lot of the fun and interesting things that unfortunately in regular American history, we kind of have to zoom through, such as, you know, a lot of the art and the music from the Harlem Renaissance, and then moving into some of the folk music of the Great Depression. World War II art, film, music, propaganda, into the, early Black R&B of the 50s, and then rock and roll coming from that, and the music and the art explosion of the 60s. Really trying to teach American history through the culture of the period. So what were, quote unquote, normal Americans doing with their day in, day out throughout mostly the 19th century, 20th century. We will start a little bit with the 19th century. Unfortunately, we don't have quite the record of that. So up front, we'll look at a brief, survey of 19th century, move into the 20th, and really dive hard into really no cultural element is off bounds, but primarily art, music, literature, and film of the era. So the idea here is that, number one, it'll be a fun course to get kids, as excited about American history as we can get them, because that's often a struggle, while at the same time kind of enhancing the knowledge that they need to acquire throughout their high school years for history. It would be a half-year elective course.
Is that also grades 9 through 12?
I believe we went 10 through 12, Mr.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
No.
No.
Great.
I think that I can speak on behalf of the rest of the board members to say thank you to all of you for your dedication and wanting to add courses for the betterment of our students. So thank you so much. We appreciate your forward thinking. We appreciate all that you do for our students day in and day out. So thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for presenting.
I just want to echo that as well. We do know that our students, by the time that they get to 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, sometimes the passion that they have for traditional school just starts to wear out a little bit. And I think, you see that everywhere with the creativity and the inventiveness and the passion that specifically our English department and our social studies department bring. I think our kids have an opportunity to engage more than just the traditional, Ohio Department of Education standard core classes. And the other appealing part of these classes to me too is that we have our Apex classes that students can take to get exposed to some electives. But we also know that having a human being teach the class and one of our teachers teach a class is a lot more valuable to them. So now we're, again, creating more opportunities for students face to face with teachers who are passionate about what they are teaching the students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate you guys providing that input there. I'm going to transition to communications report, and Jake Snyder is going to give a brief communications report. He has been busy doing COVID duty over the last 6 weeks or so since Stacy's been out, but I know he's been doing some other things in there. So Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, like he said, keep it definitely pretty brief tonight. But we still do have a few other things going on. So if Sarah's still here, it looks like she may have jumped out on us, but that's okay. That's all right. We are pretty much full steam ahead in our Parker's documentary right now. She and I have been laying the groundwork for a lot of the interviews and video that we're going to take. So the plan is a late April release, right about the time that Parker's would be going on. And we're excited about that in that it's going to be a full run Parker's that you'll be able to, and I'm going to use air quotes here, donate to a fund that will get you your video for the full Parker's, as well as what we're calling the backstage pass that will be the interviews and kind of intertwine with some storytelling and things that I don't want to give away too much, but we're excited about it. And Sarah's working hard on the back end of that to, it's going to be our most it's going to have a different feel for Parker's, but I think the most work that anybody has done on it. So we're excited about that. Other things that are going on just at Amity, just to keep you in the loop on some things. Obviously, we can't do a lot of things in person this year. So a couple of things that we have done, trying to find different ways to do things, is live streaming certain things. So last week, we actually live streamed our first ever spelling bee, which was completely virtual. Really happy with the product we put together. Super exciting for the kids. It was challenging because they weren't spelling the words out loud. They were actually holding them up on a sign. So making that a kind of a valuable production. We're happy with how that came out. Another tradition that you guys may know about is the first grade toilet paper roll races. A fun one for kids. So this year we are, obviously kids typically get to watch that live inside of the gym, and it's a big kind of an electric atmosphere if you've ever been to it, kids screaming and things like that. And that's not going to happen, obviously, because we can't have that many kids in the gym this year. So the way we're going to do it is inside of one of the ELCs in the first grade hallway. The kids are going to set up their races, and we're going to have live cameras that we're going to show out into the classroom so that kids can stay in their pods. So they're going to get to see a full live stream of it. And then the plan is to have about 6 or 7 cameras set up throughout the place that we can put a full production together to kind of share those races out with the public afterwards.
Sounds like a real race.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Like we're going to the races.
That's what we're shooting for, is a Kentucky Speedway kind of vibe.
Yes, where we go. Deer Park Speedway, Amity Drive.
Yeah,
there's no betting on these races, though. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of it.
Gambling is still illegal in the state of Ohio. Just a reminder.
You might be behind on that, Mr. Gerard.
And then very quickly, just a couple of other things. The Amity Awards, again, a little bit different. They are actually taking place tomorrow in the cafeteria, kind of all day long. And we're going to set the step and repeat, the big backdrop with the Deer Park logos on it up, and take pictures of all the award winners to share those out to families, just to get that kind of sense of normalcy back in the awards, even though people can't be there. But we're going to have those pictures and have them available for parents and things, so that everybody can see their kiddos that won awards for the first half of the year. And then the last piece that I have, this is a preview. I can't give away much information about this yet, but a couple months ago, Cheryl Walsh received a grant for a project that she's been working on through with her 3rd and 4th graders, I believe, maybe some 5th graders in there as well. But they are creating a fully virtual library using the back end of our website, where kids are going to be able to actually check out books. Anybody who might be learning virtually or might be quarantined. She received a grant and has purchased a whole bunch of books that we're using for that. And so we're building the back end of that website right now. Hopefully within the next probably month or so, we should have that ready to go. And we're really excited to share that out. The kids, one youngster with the last name Godwin has been an active participant in this back end work that we're doing. He's learning coding and all kinds of things. So we're looking forward to the release of that coming soon, but just wanted to let you know that that's going on. Cheryl's meeting with those kids every Monday to put that all together. So really fun project we've got going on. Other than that, hopefully we're going to get some athletic contests in the next few weeks to be able to get some pictures of those going on. And that is the end of my report, Jay.
All right. Thank you, Jake. Does anybody on the board have any questions for Jake?
So Jake, I'm going to ask this because a parent asked me, are they doing pictures for sports, or we just keep turning that over because we don't have the kids?
So from an action photos perspective, my plan is to, as soon as we can get some games in that fits into my schedule, to go and get pictures at the games. We absolutely will have those, and I will share those out. There will be one contest at some point from each of them that I'll be able to get to, hopefully. But and Greg would better know the answer to this one of whether they did team photos and all of those things. I'm not sure of that one, but we will have some action photos that we'll share out on the website and things like that.
Great.
Okay, thanks, Jake. And the last report this evening, Steve with Great Oaks.
Hi, Steve.
Hello, good evening. I wanted to start out tonight with just kind of update on the facilities improvements that we're doing around our districts. At Scarlet Oaks, we're doing just having a grand ribbon cutting for on March 17th for our fire training center, which has completely been rebuilt. We're also doing some upgrades on our firing range, and the police and fire departments in the area use both of those facilities extensively for their training. And the fire training center, which is unique, is instead of using smoke and actual real fires, they have a very modern system of blowing smoke in so that the facility is all the real life feeling, but it's a more controlled environment. And so it's state of the art from that standpoint. Also on Scarlet Oaks campus, as part of our early childhood education, we have run a daycare center. Now we have a private one called Learning Grove that they've just reopened, and it does do daycare for some of our teachers and some of the locals around the Sharonville area. But also our early childhood education students get opportunities to work in those and sit in those areas. So that's a good option for them to learn. And then we've also approved for the CFO to obtain funding for renovations at our Live Oaks campus. And so we're going to be doing a major redo at that campus to make it match how our other campuses are working and doing some, I think we've moved decline there, and we're doing the upgrades to that program. We're still finishing up the Laurel Oaks project, and then that will be finished sometime this year. We received the comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR, this month. And Jeff, I will supply that to you. I'll drop that off to you so you can look at this big book and
yes,
all
thank
kinds
you.
of fun.
Please, thank you.
That. But I'll drop that off to you guys' office for your use. One exciting thing is happening as we're looking ahead for new programs in the future. We're offering what's called vision care technology. So it's going to be at Diamond Oaks in 2021 and 2022. So basically, it's the kind of a little picture of it here. You see, it's basically kind of introduction into the optometry, very similar to what we do for what we could do for veterinary students. And so it's the kind of the first step if they go just straight into that program as they graduate from school, or if they take that further along, because obviously they're going to be taking some of the courses that are part of that are health science technology, medical terminology, billing and coding, which is very important if you're just right out of school, and then vision care courses. So it gives them a kind of a feeling, but also as an opportunity to have a job right out of high school or while you're still in high school. So that's an exciting program that we're starting at Diamond, and if there's need for that, then we move those things around. We also got some guidance on the Ode Graduation Pathways, and I think the critical thing I wanted to say here is for the class of 23 graduation requirements. They're currently available for the current juniors and seniors. And all the students must demonstrate readiness for college and careers. The important thing here is the administrative team should be reaching out to you guys. They have virtual meetings in January here to discuss the options for the shared students regarding this graduation requirement issues. So they should be reaching out just to have discussions to see how we're making sure that our kids are ready for the college careers and making sure they meet our graduation rates requirements. I think that's the real key. Make sure we're in sync. So they should be reaching out for that. We are back at campus. All the campuses are up and running full time. We started that January 4th. So hopefully everything works out and we can maintain that progress and have our students on campus so they can learn the vocational as well well as their academic classes. Because most of our students are hands-on learners and learning from home is not as hands-on as necessary. Also, I wanted to touch on the our high school program for acceptance procedures for 2021-2022. So the students that are applying right now to go to the Oaks campuses, those the priority deadline was is February 9th. With acceptance letters will be received March 2021. And then we also have a provision about credit deficient applicants. And these are applicants that do not meet the credit requirements. They must submit a Great Oaks credit recovery plan to be considered for acceptance. So any students that are in deficit but they want to transfer from the local district and go to Oaks, there has to be a plan in place that we know that they can meet those goals, just like you guys are doing with the kids, just try to make sure they meet their graduation requirements. And then Senate Bill 89, we know that passed and it will go into effect March the 2nd. Senate Bill 89 really was a bill written for the career and technical education. It's got other things in it now, they say. But I guess the biggest thing here for the bill what it gives to the JVSDs would be part, they'd be now considered part of any negotiated agreements for enterprise zones. And sets July 1st, 2021 for creating structure to maintain statewide inventory of industry recognized credentials. But also the bill sets new deadlines for EMIS reporting, opens up licensure for adult education instructors, and gives the JVSDs new options for calamity day planning. So the bill it's written for us, but it's also got these things about ed choice in it that aren't necessarily part of us. And then we are doing virtual open houses in January. So between January 21st and January 28th, all campuses have virtual open houses. Basically going to the Great Oaks website, greatoaks.com, and then / whatever Oaks campus that is, Scarlet, Live, Laurel, Diamond Oaks. So that is happening for the students. They're also doing in person, but just for those students. And then my last item is just student recognition. We have one student got recognized, Caden Lawson. He's an industrial diesel mechanics, and he has received a job placement with Line Haul Heavy Duty. So he is starting his career here in college, in high school. And that is my end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I have a question, but I don't know if this is Steve or Shane or Jay who would know. Our kids used to go on field trips to the Oaks to be able to experience it. So what are we doing now for kids who may be interested? I mean, I know you mentioned the virtual open house, but like, how are our kids learning about the Oaks?
Shane, you want to take that?
Yeah, and I think at this point it's been some virtual things, and I know some our teachers are going into classrooms next week. Mr. Spalek especially is going into some classrooms next week, and Miss Madden I know too. So it's been a lot of conversation. I honestly, I'd have to follow up and figure out what they've been doing, if they've been doing anything virtual one-on-one. I haven't heard them saying that they've been doing anything extra, but I can certainly check on that and follow up with you.
Okay, I was just curious because I know that was always a big exciting thing to be able to go and check it out. So I didn't know if they were doing a virtual same kind of thing. They're just doing virtually or what. So thank you.
Well, and Peggy, I can touch base on that just a little bit. It's kind of a unique scenario with Deer Park because I know how we used to do it where every sophomore got on that bus and took that field trip just for a day off. That is not how most schools do it. Most schools, it's kind of The kids who are really, I guess their counselors talk to them or whatever, but there's a core group of kids that really want to go to Oaks. So most schools only maybe 20, maybe if there's maybe 20 kids that might want to go, maybe there's 30 kids that actually go on that field trip. Just really the people who are really serious about it. So it's not just, here, let's go walk around and, you walk around, looked at the chef's area, the cosmetology, you just kind of walk around. In the back of my day, there was a secretarial part. You just kind of wander around the building, So that most schools do not do that now. I don't know if we still do that, but I think it's kind of transitioning to this marketing scenario where just like our teachers who teach, just like with this English thing we talked about here this evening, when the kids, if you want somebody to be in your class, you need to reach out and say, hey, do you want to be here? And the Oaks has to really reach out and say, we have this need. And I think some kids may miss out. I know kids that probably will never go to college and they're not learning the skill, and they probably could do well by going into veterinary or this vision or something like that, because you're learning your education, but you're kind of going to help yourself not to have to work at Home Depot or McDonald's or whatever. You're learning something that maybe can take you to a community college, or it would give you a skill right out of high school where you could work maybe a year, but you're making minimum $15 an hour. You're making $30,000 a year, and then you decide, you kind of move on, or more. But I think I don't know how they're, getting to the kids and marketing those, but I know that they reach out to the counselors, and they try to reach out to those just like the college visits, but I don't know how aggressive they really are just to try to reach out and have a meeting. That would make sense to me, Shane, that they would come on campus and they say, if anybody's interested, and give a presentation. That would be probably the first step in my mind, but I'm not sure if that's how they're doing it.
I think there's sorry, go ahead. I just think there's so many great programs you have. I was listening to the news tonight and they were talking about optometry and how many more kids are being diagnosed earlier with nearsightedness. And they were just trying to relate to why and how. And so then Steve comes on tonight with this new program that they're offering. I think it's really exciting because I think that the Oaks offers things that until I hear from Steve, I really don't know they're offered. So.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my point. And just as you were talking, Steve, it's almost like they need to market to parents, because it's the same thing as the classes that at the high school that they're offering. We don't know what you don't know.
That's correct. Now, and
you're absolutely
enough,
right. Sarah Godwin can reach out to all of her English kids, but go ahead.
Like when you watch like late night TV, sometimes they'll drop a Scarlet Oaks ad, like a 30-second Scarlet Oaks ad, like at 11:30 at night. So weird. So they have things that have their billboards. It is weird. It's like, yeah, we have these ads out there, and it's like at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, this 30-second Scarlet Oaks or Great Oaks thing pops up.
Need to tell them to put them on like no later than 8.
I believe that's true in my case also. But I don't have kids going to school. So, but yeah, I think that right now we still are getting our numbers, and we look at those numbers every month to see how that works, and then we adjust our marketing and our requirements, because we do want to keep that balance. We want to keep that number of kids in each classroom, just like any teacher. There's a number that works, but also we want to get the workforce up, and to figure out where that next technology is. We really would love kids to go into that, carpentry, masonry, where they really need workers, but the kids just don't want to do that right now. So they're working towards it, but that is something they work. There's people, that's their only job, is to get people in their classroom, and that's where the satellites really come in. I think how they get these kids in other districts, they get them through the satellites, but there's a need for kids that need jobs and need skills that get them started. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. That's the end of the reports this evening, Mrs. Bossy.
All right, then we'll move right into recommendations.
Okay, thank you. My first recommendation is to accept the $591 in donations towards supplies for Sandy's Closet.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion on that? All those in favor of approving the $591 in donation for Sandy's Closet, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the resolution for the purpose of membership of the Legal Assistance Fund that provides support to boards of education involving cases or controversies of statewide significance, and this is through OSBA.
So moved. Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the OSBA Legal Assistant Fund membership resolution, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the acceptance of $175 from Indiana Wesleyan University for their mentor teacher program stipend.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the acceptance of $175 from Indiana Wesleyan University for the mentor teacher program stipend, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And I do have some personnel this evening. My first recommendation is to approve the employment of Bob Winterberger as an interim junior senior high school assistant principal for Mindy while she is out.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving Bob Winterberger as the interim junior senior high school assistant principal, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the consultant agreement for the 2020-2021 school year for Melissa Harner as attached.
So move.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the consultant agreement for the 2020-2021 school year of Melissa Harner, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next recommendation is to approve the one-time stipend for Nicole Weber, and this is from that Indiana Wesleyan University.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the one-time stipend for Nicole Weber, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the supplemental contracts for the 2020-2021 school year for Evan Hills and Kevin Moulton as the varsity assistant baseball coach and the varsity baseball coach.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Can't wait for baseball season. That means it's warmer. All those in favor of approving the supplemental contracts for Evan Hills and Kevin Moulton, please signify by stating aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. My next recommendation is to approve the game worker employment for the 2021 school year for Paige Davies and Braxton Carpenter.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving Paige Davies and Braxton Carpenter as game workers, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And my last recommendation for personnel is to approve Joseph Peak as a volunteer in the weight room for the 2020-21 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
So is this a volunteer or is this a paid position?
Volunteer,
Okay.
Is the weight room open again?
not to the public.
Okay.
All those in favor of approving Joseph Peak as a volunteer in the weight room, please signify by stating aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And that's the end of my recommendations this evening.
All right. We will move on to Superintendent Committees.
Yes, thank you. First committee is Building and Grounds. Mr. Godwin, Mr. Downey, Mrs. Kellums. Anything from You three?
Well,
Yeah.
we're still monitoring the potential for roof leaks at Amity, but so far things seem to be doing well. There's a lighting issue in the 5th and 6th grade wing, but they're in the process of getting that taken care of. And they're continuing to work with some HVAC questions related to balance and temperature control. At homes, they've installed smoke detectors throughout the building, and there's installed a plaque outside the clothes closet for Sandy Mills. At the junior senior high school, the new lockers have been finally been delivered, and they'll be installed this summer. They were having problems with the boiler, but they required replacement of a control board, and that's taken care of. And we're starting to look at the possibility of sometime converting the lighting in the gym from fluorescent to LED lights. And finally, the garage door out in the sports complex is fixed and secure. The building is secure.
Thank you, Mr. Godwin. Any additions from Mr. Downey or Ms. Kellums?
No.
No, thank you, Jack.
Thank you. My next report is Finance Committee, and I'm not sure if we have anything, Mrs. Bossy or Mr. Downey, at this point.
Do not.
I have nothing.
Okay, good deal. And policy, there's a lot of policy happening on the back end and at the State House right now, but nothing official from a spring policy yet. We will have that, I'm sure, unless Mr. Godwin or Mrs. Huster has anything that they wanted to ask or add.
No.
Okay, thank you. And OSBA has been pretty quiet as well. Anything from OSBA, Mr. Godwin or Mrs. Huster?
No.
Okay, that is the end of my committee reports this evening.
All right, Mrs. Huster, did you want to say something? You're muted again.
There I am. Okay, I just wanted to say that I was listening at OSBA where they're kind of talking about the funding and working, deciding whether they're going to have funding, who's going to have funding. So that seems to be kind of, at least it's on the horizon, but at least they're still talking about it now. Jay, I was worried that it would just kind of get dropped off last December. So that was kind of happy.
And, you know, I think if the Senate side had their way, it would have just dropped off.
Right.
But, you know, we have some very good advocates for public education in the House side who's really pushing things forward. And, you know, I've been pretty active with our advocacy leadership, Corky O'Callaghan and some other superintendents across the state, trying to figure out ways that would make sense for us to become involved that would help move the effort forward. You know, what we don't want to be seen is just the complaining superintendents who just gripe and complain all the time, you know, but we want to be able to positively have some impact. And so we're still trying to figure out ways to do that. I think something's going to happen from a financial standpoint, although I don't think it's going to be what we have hoped for or what was proposed in the Fair School Funding Formula. However, because the Senate so quickly approved the Ed Choice vouchers in December prior to the end of the year, they rushed that through overnight. I also feel like they believe that they need to do some things. And right now what I'm hearing, while it wouldn't impact Deer Park schools directly right now, is that they are going to go ahead and move forward with the state covering those Ed Choice vouchers rather than them coming from local tax dollars. So that will be very helpful to a lot of school districts and a lot of Hamilton County school districts. You know, so that would be a step forward. Still a lot of work to be done though.
Right. And I was listening to the fact that they were saying they weren't going to tell how much money each district was going to be getting this year because they were waiting to see what they were going to do with the Choice Act and what was going on as far as the spending. So hopefully we move forward on that.
Yes.
Keep up the good work.
Now, related to that, I will mention we don't have confirmed numbers yet with the next round of coronavirus relief, but it's appearing the prospect is that it will be pretty substantial for Deer Park schools, which is good news. We will find out more over the coming weeks. But what we're hearing is positive. So
Good.
All right, Mr. Phillips, are there any public comments?
no, there were not. Let me double
Okay.
check, make sure there aren't any haven't been added since I've been on.
While you're looking for that, we can go on to board discussion. Does anybody have anything to discuss?
I have quite a few things on my list here. But if anybody else has anything that they want to ask, or if you want me to go first, and if I don't cover it, we could do that too.
I just had two quick shout outs. One, congrats to all the spelling bee participants, and especially to Molly Wormuth, who was the champion this year. And congratulations to the Chick-fil-A Leadership Academy members for being runners up in the Do Good December contest.
Thank you.
That was outstanding.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
They were pretty excited, and I think it actually we're going to be doing a spring project as well. And I think the fact that we had limited participation from our group. We have about 20 kids that participate in that, and probably about half of that actually participated in the Do Good December project. But I think that gave us some momentum, because I think some of the kids were really excited about a spring project, and that recognition from Chick-fil-A that we finished runners up, and that's nationwide, that was in the country, gave them a little momentum. So I think that's pretty cool. So thanks for recognizing us.
I just have one question. How are we moving forward with the AED in the gym?
Yes, actually, and I don't know if Jeff's been communicated, but the last I spoke to Greg, which was actually probably a week or two ago, I told him to find it and send it to us, and we would purchase it. So he's,
Okay.
he's working on that right now.
Okay.
And I will.
The
Go ahead.
defibrillator.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I've got a rec in place to make that purchase. It should be purchased tomorrow, I would assume. So
Okay.
it's in there as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, I'm still looking for the document, but I'm going to go ahead and as I talk, I'm going to go ahead and touch on a few pieces here for board discussion. As I talk, I'll continue to search for it. But the first thing I wanted to just give a quick summary on is our COVID numbers and kind of what's going on with the vaccine and the vaccine rollout. Right now, just so everybody's aware, we have had a couple new cases since last week. District-wide right now at Amity Elementary, I should say, currently we have 2 staff that are considered positive or probable, meaning that the test is pending, but they're symptomatic and have been exposed to somebody with COVID. So we have 2 staff and 5 students at Amity Elementary. And at the high school, we have 1 staff member and 5 students at the high school as well. So from a student perspective, that works out to about 1% of the student population at the high school and about 0.7%, 0.8% of the student population at Amity Elementary that are actually in person. So the quarantine regulations, or the new regulations, have helped us significantly. I do want to let parents know that may be tuning into this or will be watching this later. We are going to make a modification to our close contact call. So, we have had quite a few close contacts to those cases, but if the close contact happens in a regular or typical classroom setting, when all masks are being worn, kids no longer have to quarantine, okay? They can remain in school. But what we are doing is we are calling every family to let them know that their child was considered a close contact. They do not have to quarantine, but we just encourage them to monitor closely, a little bit more closely, for symptoms when that happens. The communication is going to change a little bit. We, this week, well, I should say today, many of our administrators spent an exorbitant amount of time making all of those calls. So what we're going to do is we're going to have just a form letter, and we're going to send an email from here on out to just those parents whose kids were considered close contact but do not have to quarantine. And we're going to give them the details of that in that form letter. And then if they have questions, they can call us. But typically on those cases, they don't have a lot of questions. They just know that, monitor their kid. Obviously, we'll still make personal one-on-one, one-to-one communication for kids that either do have to quarantine or that are symptomatic that we have to send home and that need to go see a physician. So we're changing the communication a little bit on that. From a vaccine rollout standpoint, it's still going very slow. We had a call Friday, our typical superintendent call with Hamilton County Commissioner Greg Kesterman and Dr. Fagans. And really what's going on right now is they still schedule, educators are still part of phase 1B rollout, which is scheduled to be rolled out on February the 1st. However, the supply chain, there's been a little crink in the supply chain, so they have not been getting as many doses as they anticipated, which is really slowing this down. So come February 1st, phase 1A is still not complete. However, they are going to start vaccinating educators beginning February 1st, but it's going to be very minimal because they're going to be trying to finish phase 1A and also start phase 1B at the same time. As of last week, I think they were still receiving 500 doses per week, which does not go very far. Now, that was Hamilton County Public Health Office. There are other hospitals that are receiving the vaccine, every day or each week. But the doses, there's not a lot of them right now. There's a lot made, but something's happening with the supply chain that they're not able to get very many doses. I talked to Lisa Sweeterman, who is one of the executives for Mercy Hospital. And, we have a very good partnership with Mercy Health, and they are going to assist us when it comes time for vaccine rollout. Our nurses are going to be part of the process, but Mercy Health is going to help us as well. So we'll be able to hopefully vaccinate in district at our buildings through our nurses, but also be able to have vaccinations occur for our staff members, whether it's after hours, before hours, board members who maybe not be working in the schools every single day, that you will be able to go to Mercy Health to get some of that done. So she said, Jay, we're going to support you. We're going to help you. So they're going to be a partner with us as we work to roll out this vaccine. From a vaccine number standpoint, we had about 173 staff members who filled out the survey. It was in that neighborhood, and about 81.3% of our staff indicated that they would be getting the vaccine, which is a lot higher than what we've seen in the medical field. It's been anywhere from 45 to 55% in the medical field that are actually getting the vaccine. So I'm not sure what to attribute that to. Yes. Is there a question? Okay. So that's where we're at with the vaccine. School itself, it's great, obviously great to see kids back. Things have seemed to be running pretty smoothly. We had one day last week at the high school where we were a little thin from a staffing perspective, but we got it covered. Today was actually a good day. Not too many staff, I think one or so out at the high school, and we had a couple out at Amity Elementary. But as long as we can keep our numbers contained relatively low, and we have the staff to be able to cover our classes and teach our classes, our goal is to continue to remain in person. There was some communication that went out today, I believe, regarding substitute teachers. There's been a shortage of substitute teachers over the last couple of years. COVID-19 really exacerbated that shortage. The state of Ohio actually passed an emergency law that basically has removed the requirement of substitutes to have a 4-year degree. And so we can actually interview and bring people into the COG. They would still have to go through a full background check, fingerprinting, everything like that. But it would be able to allow us to have more adults to be able to cover some of our classes. And remember, if teachers have to quarantine for whatever reason, whether a family member's sick, a kid's sick, a spouse is sick, and they're close contacts and they have to quarantine and they themselves are not sick, they're able to teach virtually. So we're able to bring them into the classroom onto the smart board. They can teach virtually, but we still have to have an adult in that classroom. And, we do have many adults in the classrooms right now, support staff that don't have 4-year degrees, from aides and custodians and servers, the cafeteria staff. So we have a lot of those types of folks in our building now. This just helps with coverage of classes through the end of this year. And I believe they will sunset that law at the end of this year, and then we'll go back to requiring substitutes to have 4-year degrees. Any questions on COVID or anything that I just talked about from that standpoint? Okay, and just kudos to our staff. They're doing a great job making sure our kids are staying safe and making sure they're staying safe so that they can stay healthy and be in school. It was brought up, I believe, maybe the question was asked of me at some point by one of the board members about the after-school enrichment program at Amity and where we stand with that. And I know Josh has talked to his staff and has actually reached out to his staff about interest in making that happen. We talked about it being virtual last semester. The reality was that the program is designed to be in person. A lot of activities, a lot of labs, a lot of hands-on activities, and not knowing where we were going to be, and then thinking about trying to transition all of that to virtual, I think was a little overwhelming for our staff to say, yes, let's throw everything on its head and change our entire curriculum for our after-school enrichment. And they were hoping maybe we could get back to some sort of in-person second semester where they would roll it out. I know Josh reached out to his staff to see who would be interested in facilitating at least even portions of that after-school enrichment. If we do get the staff interest, we plan on rolling that out here over the next few weeks to the beginning of spring. But Josh, did you have anything else to add to that, or am I pretty much hitting the nail on the head on that one?
No, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. That survey is still open through Wednesday. For any staff to finish, filling it out. One of the questions on there that I asked was, regardless of however you feel it should go this year, which do we think would be most effective, in person or virtual? And we know that our kids learn best in person, right? That's kind of why we push to have everyone back, and that's the way our staff feels about that enrichment process as well. Which can create struggles in trying to organize that piece. So we're talking about it. We're trying to figure out what we can or can't do, and we'll get back to you on it.
Thank you.
Any questions about that before I move to my next topic that I have? Okay. CommuniServe, I know I brought that to you guys, I don't know, a week or two ago, and just wanted to talk about allowing our students to volunteer at Amity. With the quarantine regulations being what they are at this point, not having to quarantine within a typical classroom as long as all masks are being worn. Didn't know if that was something that we wanted to consider to be able to do to allow our students who are in CommuniServe at this point to be able to volunteer in the classrooms at Amity this second semester. I don't think it hurts us from a COVID standpoint in that realm. But obviously it could potentially increase exposure to kids that otherwise wouldn't have to be exposed to that. So wondering your thoughts.
Jay, do you have kids that are interested in doing it?
We do. They're doing alternative projects right now at the high school, and some of them are actually mentoring our students who are taking classes virtually at this time. And I know Tim has some other projects that are going on with some of the students, but
right.
Mr. Hubbard actually reached out to me to ask if that would be something that we would consider. I didn't give him any answers. I told him I'd like it to discuss it with all of you to just get your thoughts and feelings on it before we moved in that direction. Yes, Mrs. Huster.
My concern with it is the fact that when we're discussing people getting the virus, most of the time it isn't being passed by when we're in school together, and when we're bringing high school kids in and they have just a different environment of what they do after school with sports and all that, just keeping the herds kind of small. That's where I think my concern is the fact that, we don't have any control of any of that. And when they come over, they usually travel together. And I think we're kind of right now, to my idea, is that we have just been back 2 weeks. I want us to be there the rest of the school year as our kids being in school in person. So that is really my concern with that.
So just to really limit that potential exposure as
exactly much. Because we're moving the high school in with the elementary, and the kids that are at the high school, do different, they're older, they're bigger, they do other things after school. Many of them might have jobs after school. It's that component of us making sure that we're keeping the exposure small, especially if you bring them in, and then we've got to worry about staff too. Anytime you're exposed to anybody, then I just would worry. That would be my worry for right now in this school year.
Understood. Any other thoughts or feelings or opinions on it?
I mean, it's a great idea, and it's really a benefit, but maybe it's something we shelve for a couple weeks. I know,
Yeah,
I say second semester wanted to do it, but maybe we wait a bit.
How many kids?
I don't have an exact number for you, Mrs. Kellens. I would have to ask Mr. Hubbard, but I would say it's typically a dozen.
I mean, it's not a big group.
No, to both Chris and Dan's point as well, I think that one, we do want to limit the exposure, but we did just come back full time, and we want to stay that way. And I think I kind of like the idea of maybe seeing how things go, maybe through the third quarter, and then if we get through the third quarter and we're still moving forward full speed ahead, and we haven't really seen a tremendous amount of spread within the building, maybe that we could consider it at that point.
Agreed.
I'm good with whatever.
Mrs. Bossy, Mr. Godwin, would you guys be comfortable with that?
Yes.
I would be comfortable with that. I didn't know if there was any way that you could do any kind of Zooming or anything with one-on-one with students. I know you have to worry about, then people need to be watching over all of that, but just the thought, because I know for some of those students at Amity, that's a really important connection that they're missing out on. Yeah. So I don't know if there's another way to make it work where it's not in person.
Yeah, I'll ask Mr. Hubbard.
Logistically, that's a nightmare, but just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I'll ask Mr. Hubbard. I know they've, like I said, they're doing virtual right now with our students who are on the virtual academy. They're actually Zooming with them and supporting and mentoring and helping them. So, if we could do that from a scheduling standpoint, that would be, I'm sure that's something he'd be open to, but I'll mention that to him. And I'll also let him know that we're going to keep the course through the end of the quarter, with the possibility of going back to that fourth quarter, at least give those kids that experience for the last part of the year. Okay, thank you. DP preschool, Deer Park Preschool, I did want to let you know that we're expanding that to 5 days next year. It is 4 days currently. We are going to expand that to 5 days. With that, the price is going to raise slightly. Patty, am I correct in saying it's going from 150 to 175? Yes, so it'll be $175 next year, which is still, compared to anywhere you look, is an absolute bargain. But we will be doing that 5 days, so that I think that's exciting for our kids and for our early literacy as well. Washington, D.C. trip has been rescheduled. I believe I mentioned this to you, but I want to make sure everybody's aware. It was COVID and the election. I'm kind of glad we weren't there in November when we were supposed to be there, even without COVID. And so we're hoping that we're going to be able to attend May 10th through the 13th. So that's confirmed with the travel company and with our kids and our families, but I just want to make you all aware. And the last thing I want to talk about, you've heard me mention a couple of times now over the past month since December, we're talking about an academic recovery plan. I know Mr. Hartley and Mr. Gerard are still making some headway with their staff about what that's going to look like. And Stacy's going to grab this one by the horns when she gets back on Thursday. But part of the reason I'm telling you this is that part of the coronavirus relief funds, when we saw the stipulations that came out, because, there's always things attached to the money that we get from the government. It's never, there's never no strings attached. There are always strings attached. But one of the strings attached is that we are permitted to spend it on remediation and academic recovery. So that'll be a good thing for us to be able to provide incentives to both our kids and our staff to run it, whether it ends up being on the weekends or after school or during the summer. I'm sure a lot of this programming will take place during the summer, but we will be able to pay our staff to do that through these funds. And we will also be able to provide incentives to families, to kids, and kids to get them there and be part of this program. So I think that was the good thing as well. So those are the items that I had that I wanted to discuss with you this evening.
Okay,
I got a
anybody
couple.
else?
I've got a couple items I'd like to touch on. One is, what are we finally doing with the ACT testing? As far as scheduling goes.
Yeah, that is something I actually had on my list as well, Paul, and I was going to bring up too, actually. But so the question that I pose and that I've asked of all of you in the scenario around it is that ACT, as you all know, we take it during the school day now. It used to be on Saturday mornings. We now do that during the school day. It's pretty cumbersome when it's coming from a staffing perspective. We need 16 staff members to proctor this test. Now, you know, I've offered my services and our director's services, and I know Mrs. Huster said she would support and help, and but that still leaves us with about 12, 10 to 12 people that we've got to pull out of the class. So the question is, do we have a remote learning day that day? I didn't even want to think about that, being that we're just in finally back in person. Do we have a half a day with a half remote learning day, meaning half a remote learning in the morning for, say, grades 9, 10, and 12, and then 11th grade there in person, as well as 7th and 8th grade, and then bring 9, 10, and 12 back after lunch when the test is done? Do we just do a full remote day? I've reached out to a few superintendents and curriculum directors at other school districts, and they're in the same boat as we are. They're looking at doing alternative schedules that day. If we bring all of our kids in and we have to pull all these teachers to proctor, what we end up doing then is putting a big group of kids, 9th, 10th, and 12th graders in the auditorium and spreading them out and having them work on work, which doesn't seem, like the best idea either. So there's a bunch of bad ideas here, trying to figure out the best of the bad ideas. Any thoughts on that? Personally, my recommendation would probably be to have a half virtual day that day in the morning and allow our kids to come back, in the afternoon to get their lunch and then have their core classes in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think I could live with that.
I like that idea as well, Mr. Phillips. And that's what, late spring?
That is February the 25th, I believe.
So it's coming up pretty quick.
Jane,
Yeah.
is that accurate? I don't know if you're still on here.
Yeah, that's what you sent us, February 25th.
Okay. I believe that's a Thursday.
Yes.
It's the 23rd.
23rd.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
It's a typo, right?
Must be.
Mr. Hartley, what do you think?
Good.
I think that because of the number, and we're honestly a little extra higher this year with some of the number of proctors that we need. Some of that is due to Deer Park Discovery. Some of that is due to just this year who have different accommodations, start, stop, time and a half, double time. And all those students have to be tested individually. So we talk about, we can make a plan. We had said to Mr. Phillips, we can make a plan. It just gets to be very clunky and very complicated. And probably what ends up happening is, 9th, 10th, and 12th graders walking around the hallways, going to their teachers' classes and then seeing a sign, hey, go to the auditorium. So then we end up chasing kids around and, it can be done. It's just very complicated to do it in person that way.
Do you like the half day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you responsible for having to do like the makeup exams or the makeup test too? SATs, like the sick days of kids out?
We would have to do the makeup ACTs, but that would require very few proctors at that point. So we would be good there.
Okay.
I support whatever you guys think is best.
Okay.
Me too.
And I appreciate that. And on a typical year, it really wouldn't be a big deal, but we've been out of school so much. And I know there's just that stigma around not being in school right now, even if it's for a half a day, that I just want to make sure that you are all comfortable with that as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got one other item, Jay.
Okay.
I had a request from a elementary student to make sure that German was being taught at the high school when he gets there.
Okay. We'll see if we can accommodate that young man. Thank you for the request.
All right.
Okay, that's it on my end from board discussion. Does anyone else have anything?
No.
Dan, you have anything?
I do not. I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would like
Okay.
to say a big shout out, all the Amity elementary teachers and staff that stands out in the cold every morning to direct traffic has been really nice. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Karen.
And we do not have any public comment?
No.
Okay. At this time, we need to move to executive session to discuss the employment of a school employee or official. But before we motion, I just want to let the rest of you watching know that we will not be taking any action when we come back from executive session. So you do not need to stay and wait. It's up to you if you want to, but there won't be anything except for us coming back to end the meeting. So just giving you that heads up. So if I could have a motion to move to executive session.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Everybody moved.
To executive session.
All right, all those in favor of moving to executive session to discuss the employment of a school employee or official, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are heading to executive session.
All right.
Good
Jay,
night,
did you
everyone
send me
else.
that
Thank
link?
you for joining.
Should be in
Okay.
your email, and make
All right.
sure you guys sign out of this. Don't leave this open.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes,
Thank you.
I will leave this open, Jay.
You can leave it open, but we will all sign out.
Correct. I'll
Okay.
leave just me up for right now, muted.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Sorry about that, guys.
No problem, Jake.
No problem. I was just thought, what is happening? All right, if we can have roll call, please.
Peggy Bossy,
Here.
Paul Godwin,
Here.
Chris Euster,
Here.
Karen Kellums,
Here.
Dan Downey.
Here.
All right, if I could have a motion for adjournment.
I
So
move we
moved.
adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All right, I'm taking Euster motion, Godwin second.
All those in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
All right. Have a good
I do have
night.
Jay, I do have a question for you before you
Yes.
hang up. When we